been southbound, I've been hellbound, riding on the midnight train. Going too fast now, think I'll slow down, standing in the pouring rain.
What's going on, folks? This is Tristan and Tony here at the One Hell of a Life Outdoor Podcast, and we are bringing you a Florida topic-heavy podcast with a gentleman named Adam Steele. He is a Floridian, and he is the R3 director for Backcountry Hunter and Anglers. He's a great wild game chef, I've heard, and we're excited to talk some Florida and thankful for his time. Adam, thank you for taking the time to come on tonight, man.
Yeah, appreciate you guys having me. Excited to be here, and as always, love talking about anything outdoors, especially cooking related. And if that cooking involves eating, I happen to enjoy it even more.
I hear that, man. And I definitely want to get into that a lot more because, you know, one of the things with just outdoor cooking in general is there's so many, as you know, I mean, so many things can be ruined by slightly overcooking something or under, you know, there's a lot, especially duck. I'm still figuring out duck.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of nuances there that it's a little less forgiving than some of your commodity proteins.
Right.
Well, you know, and I'll tell you this, it's kind of like a fair comparison is, you know, my wife swore all her life that she could bake, and bro, I've had peanut butter with a little bit of jelly cookies. I've had all kinds of crazy stuff. All right. Well, and she gets so mad and is like, you know, I can't make this stuff work right or taste good. And I'm like, well, because you have to follow the instructions. You know, I mean, it's like, you know, there's a little bit of an art to making something taste great, you know, and baking is so particular. And that's what I'm saying. When you said
Right.
that, Tristan, it made me think about how easy it is to mess up a piece of meat or any kind of a fish or anything like that. You know, there's definitely, you can grow up most of your life like me and think that Subway was the, you know, was the shit. And, you know, then people start to introduce you to like what food really tastes like. And you're like, why did I ever go there? You know, I'm not throwing any shade on Subway, but just, I didn't know what good food could taste like. And dude, I've been looking through your Instagram and there's a whole lot of shit that I want to know how to make.
Yeah, it's hard. It's tough. You know, like you said, once you have a taste of what can be from an ingredient just by treating it simply with just a little bit of respect, then once your eyes are opened, it's really hard to go back. And for better or worse, I was exposed through working in really nice restaurants at a really young age, exposed to a lot of really good stuff. And I knew I was never going to be able to afford to go out to eat like that every night. So I needed to find a way to kind of put myself in the middle. So I could, you know, because my eyes were open. I was like, man, how can I ever go back to looking at food the same way after I've been exposed to some of the greatest ingredients out there?
Right.
I heard that.
It's driven my life and a lot of the decisions I've made since then.
That's awesome, man. And I definitely want to dive into that a lot more here in a minute. I guess that's kind of a good point. You know, Adam, kind of give us some, you know, background on, you know, who you are, you know, personally and professionally. And are you from Florida originally and all that good stuff?
I'm not originally from Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Texas.
Okay.
Grand Prairie, just outside of Dallas, Fort Worth area.
Mm-hmm.
Spent the first 5 or 6 years of my life there. Ended up in Colorado. My dad got transferred with his job up there. Spent 25 years running around the mountains, doing all kinds of cool stuff.
Wow.
And ended up in Florida. Going on 13 years now, I think.
Nice.
So the term Floridian is strong. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think I maybe maybe have made it to that point now.
I think you get the pass if you're over a decade in there.
Yeah, and I'd like to think I participate in all the required activities to be a Floridian. So alligator hunting and frogging and scalloping and all that kind of stuff. So
right.
There's still a lot I haven't seen though. Like I've never really been to the Everglades or haven't spent any time on Lake Okeechobee. So there's still a lot of stuff that I'm really looking forward to.
Mm-hmm.
It's been the first, coming from Colorado, the first year or two I lived here, I had a really young daughter, so I couldn't get out much. And it was really a hard adjustment for me because I hadn't seen what Florida has to offer. It's a very diverse state. Mm-hmm. Naturally. I mean, the Panhandle is completely different than the Keys, which is completely different from the Gulf Coast. And then the Highlands area of Florida, where there's actually some topography, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. It's a very diverse state. So I've really come to enjoy just everything it has to offer. There's just a lot more out there. So,
man, I gotta imagine, so we're originally from Illinois, and I'm 26. So the first 15 years of my life, we lived in Illinois, and my dad lived there, for 30 something years. And we moved down to Florida, and just for me, it was, we had a big deer hunting background in Illinois, and that was kind of my first love. But everything else, I mean, that Florida has to offer has kind of been, whether it be a gator hunt or learning how to duck hunt in Florida, just the diversity of outdoors, like you said, and that's just coming from the Midwest of Florida. I can't imagine coming from such a beautiful, wildlife abundant state like Colorado to Florida. Talk about two beautiful ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, I was always told people the deer got smaller mm-hmm. and the fish got bigger.
That's right.
So you kind of traded it out a little bit, and the hiking is just as hard because it's not easy hiking through the heat, the humidity, and the swamp. Mm-hmm. It really gets your cardio working, going up and down those rocky scree-filled slopes that just almost snap your ankles.
Yeah.
Sometimes at every step, and it's challenging in completely different ways. So I really felt that I had to learn a lot of stuff all over again.
Yeah.
And I kind of put myself in that mindset of, okay, I don't know anything. I know there's fish in that water, but I don't know what they are, how to catch them, what not that I need to use. So I can kind of put myself back in that learning mode and try to absorb it mm-hmm. as much as I can from as many different people, and manage to have a good time along the way. So,
man, and what you just said is really important too, because I think, some people, if you just are in the same area and you do the same thing, which there's nothing wrong with that, but you do kind of be like, oh, okay, well, I know a lot about what I'm doing, and there's a beauty in kind of starting over fresh again. And one of the things that me and my dad really love about this podcast is just talking to people like you, or whether it be somebody like, Travis Thompson or somebody else in the state of Florida or wherever. It doesn't matter where they're from. Just hearing how they do things, we pick up little tidbits of things that we're like, oh, maybe we might try that. So that's just a great perspective, I think, to have on, trying new things.
The reality is that I'm not very smart, and I've become much smarter since I've been on this podcast.
Yeah. and that's what they always say. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
That's right.
So you just try to keep yourself in an environment where things are a challenge. You're learning from other people. You get that cross pollination of ideas. And it just keeps it exciting, fresh and new. And for me lately, it hasn't always been about actually hunting and getting out and hunting. There's a lot of other activities that I've come to enjoy. The older I get, the less I like sitting in a tree all day. Mm-hmm. I'll admit it. My back hurts, it's getting to be where I really used to look forward to that. But more and more, I look forward to the other aspects of hunting season, which is getting to meet new people, eating good food, telling stories. It's just, again, just keeping it fresh, keeping it new, and keeping it exciting has been rewarding in itself, I guess.
In the outdoors, every detail counts. See sharper, aim clearer. From the river's edge to the heart of the flooded timber, Hook and Bullet has your vision covered. Hook and Bullet's purpose-built optics are flawlessly crafted to give you an edge regardless of your outdoor pursuit. Use code ZeroDuck30 for 15% off a pair of Hook and Bullet sunglasses today.
Yeah, no, I would imagine so.
Just real quick, who was the young man we had on that was so inspiring to us? He's up in the Carolinas or somewhere, I think.
Jared Droz.
I'm going to tell you what. You want to talk about always being a learner.
Mm-hmm.
I got more from that young man that night on that podcast. If you guys haven't listened to that podcast, and I don't mean to be stealing any thunder right now, but this young man is way beyond his years. And somebody, well, he's been through a lot, but incredible. And I think it's just a great testament of being able to always just learn no matter, I mean, I'm 51 and I still don't know much, so yeah. I know more than you, Tristan. So shush.
Yeah, the old time on planet.
Yep. The TOP.
Yeah.
Time on planet.
Yeah, it's good that the earlier you learn that in life, and that young man it's like you said, he's well ahead of the curve.
Yep.
If he's already got that attitude, because keeping that attitude that any situation can be a learning experience if you let it be.
Mm-hmm.
What is the chef I used to work for always said? Nobody's worthless. Anyone can serve as a bad example. Kind of lends itself to, like, hey, as long as you turn it into a learning experience, then you had that positive attitude to, So.
That's right. Yeah. So I guess, one thing I'm kind of curious about is, so do you cook as your job? Like, what do you do for work? Is that your trade, is just cooking, I guess?
I do some consultation for cooking still, private events. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of game processing and animal processing. That's kind of my main thing. And then I travel around teaching classes on processing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sausage making and curing meats and that kind of stuff. So,
okay. Well,
again, that's one of those, like, the older I get, the less I want to physically use my body,
mm-hmm.
and the more I want to kind of, transition into that educational and consultation role.
Well,
sure.
There's that simple saying, do what you're good at. I mean, you're obviously, and you enjoy doing it, so that's,
the saying, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life, is a complete lie, by the way. But you'll be happier while you're doing it.
Man, we can relate.
There's, it's funny, like, there's two sides of the story, but it's like, in a perfect world, what hunter wouldn't want to have a career somewhat in the outdoors doing something? Who wouldn't want to hunt every day? But then there's the side of it that's like, well, if you got to do it all the time and it was your job, would it take something away from it,
Right.
Yeah, no, Mike Waddell, I think it was, did a good piece on that several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a double-edged sword,
mm-hmm.
And I think it's just like anything you do. You got to find that balance.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta make your family time. You got to make your time for God. You got to do these things to keep your things in balance. Or that's when, to me, it starts to get more stressful. When you get outside that balance.
Sure.
That's it. That's exactly it.
So I guess let's kind of get into some of the BHA stuff, Adam. How did you get plugged in with them, and just kind of take us about, a commercial on who they are and what they do.
Well, one of the many jobs I've had over the years was working in a commercial greenhouse here in Florida. And I used to listen to a lot of podcasts, and I ran across their DHA podcast with Hal Herring, and it was just different than the other ones I kind of heard.
Mm-hmm.
More of a philosophical, and I don't agree with everything any podcast has on. But I just enjoyed it for like the different perspective that it brought to the table. And then that was about the time, I think 2018 or 19, when Florida was starting to break off from the Southeast chapter. So got involved with them around that time and formed the Florida chapter. So since then, I've been on the board of directors for Florida as the R3 chair. So my job is just anything that involves recruitment, retention, reactivation of new hunters, old hunters, and just engaging in general people that may have questions or may have a bad public perception on hunting. So I enjoy cooking. That's my love language, as they say. So a lot of what I do is go out there and be like, hey, you guys are on the fence about hunting. Well, here's not only a story about conservation, but listen, here's how we can really connect with this resource that we have, this land, this natural thing that surrounds us that we may not engage with. And anybody that I know that spent significant time in the outdoors understands how good it can be for you, how peaceful it can be, or how just sustaining it can be at a time you may need it. So kind of just relating that to people in a way that you can share something tangible with them, and they can sit down and take a bite and really experience your story through smell and touch and taste. So that's kind of a lot of what I see myself as in that role, is not only with new hunters, but just people that may not have any opinion on hunting. And we've seen a steady decline in the public perception of hunters and hunting over the last few years. So just, understandably, hunters have gotten kind of a bad rap in cartoons and
all the game warden shows. Yep.
So it's our job as stewards of that resource to kind of put our best foot forward when it comes to that. And that includes people, I've cut steaks off a deer for vegetarians and vegans and had that opportunity to sit down and talk with them and have them understand me and my world and me understand theirs.
One thing I want to kind of, not to throw you totally off track, but one thing I'd be curious to just kind of hear your opinion on, Adam, is, a lot of people feel like, social media and all these videos and podcasts and all these different things nowadays have, in a way, some people strongly will say, oh, well, it's ruined hunting. But like, I feel like what you just said, as a steward of hunting, like we've always been big about, me and my dad, like when we post pictures of animals, like if it's a deer, like not having the tongue hanging out, like make it look like the best that animal could look if you're doing a grip and grin or whatever. But like,
well, honestly, it's a selfish thing too. I want to see that magical animal that I'm taking a picture with, whether it's a squirrel or a deer, look as good as the day that I saw it walk in on me, or whatever.
Right. And I feel like if we're being a steward of, whether social media and all that stuff's good or not, why not paint it in the best light you can, whether it be a video or a picture,
Yep.
Absolutely. It's often said as hunters, we are our own worst enemy when it comes to a lot of things. The infighting over methods of take and all that kind of stuff is a lot of what is keeping us from getting together and actually solving some issues in our community and in our realm, whatever it may be.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about this on the podcast with Ramsey Russell, Tristan, and that was our, Tristan's cousin, second cousin from Germany, has came here, the last couple of years. And, I had to take a pee during the podcast, and I walked outside my podcast studio's down in the basement, and I got an exit door out the back, and she was out there praying. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. I could tell she was praying. She goes, no, it's okay. And I said, well, are you okay? And she said, yes. And I said, well, why are you praying? She said, I'm praying for the catfish that Cody's cutting right now. And I said, so it opened my long story short, it opened my eyes to what you're talking about is, you can't just be like, F you, because you don't understand our world. I mean,
Right.
you can't do that. It's just, people don't know what they don't know. I mean, that's just like, when I grew up with nothing in my life as a kid, I didn't know it was possible to achieve success at one point in my life, to be honest, until I joined the military. But, you don't know what you don't know. And,
Yep.
and
Absolutely.
Ramsey talked about it, in our podcast with him about, connecting the dots with people, and us understanding their world so that they can better understand ours. And Tristan
you're not going to understand what you're not willing to try to understand.
Yeah. But after a 2-year process of us not pushing her, but helping her understand, she's tasted venison. She's tasted duck. She loves it. She still is not quite understanding how we kill something that we love to do, which is a big deal. But my point is we got to feel that firsthand.
Yeah. It's a very powerful thing when you see somebody really take in, your world and your perspective. And the least we could do is just return that and understand theirs and realize we have a lot more in common than, people make out, which is we all like to eat. We all have to eat.
Yeah.
And if we have to eat, we might as well make it good.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's right. And I think, with a lot of vegans and vegetarians, I think another common ground, maybe, I don't know, but would be, if they're doing it out of ethical reasons for respect for animals, a lot of hunters, are true conservationists, and truly
that's been the biggest congruency with that group is like, listen, I love the planet just as much as you do.
Right.
I hug just as many trees as you do, but I also put arrows through deer.
Right.
That's my relationship with the earth.
If it wasn't without us, we wouldn't have saved the animals that are in the United States right now. I mean, Ramsey talked about it with the canvasbacks and everything, or, the ducks on the East Coast. When it was commercialized, if it wasn't for hunters at that bubble in time, none of us would be doing what we're doing right now. None of us. I don't know if people realize that, dude. It was such a shaky spot.
Well, I think, isn't that a lot of the stuff that kind of FDR kind of put in place? With
Well, of course.
Establishing like Pope and Young. I don't, I think I may be off on some of this, but I think some of the thought process around some of those, scoring systems was to conservation.
Help with conservation. Yeah, no. And so, the big deal is like you said, we do have common ground, and we do want to protect our natural resources. All of us do. Just the person that's out there posting bird photography to us as hunters, we gotta work together to preserve these resources, because here's the deal. Bottom line is, if we don't, and I hate to use a little bit of fear selling here, if we do not, and you already know this, I know, Adam, and that is the money and the businesses are going to push us out. And one of the things we're going to talk about as we dive into this is Tristan and I have seen it firsthand, but Adam obviously is way more boots on the ground about the loss of habitat in the state of Florida. It is sickening in just the amount that we've seen in our little world, and I think about that multiplied, and I don't know what numbers there is, and maybe Adam's going to share some of that, but it's crazy. It really is to me.
Yeah. I think at one time they were saying 1,000 people a day moving to Florida.
Yeah, no, that's what we heard too. Yeah, we're up in St. Johns County, and that area is just, getting hammered with just people, moving there day after day. Just from the place we lived, the 10 years we were there, when we lived there, it was like our neighborhood and a bunch of pine trees everywhere. Then now if you go
which
back,
was all nature preserve.
Yeah, now it's just a Publix and a high school, and it's wild.
Well, and then they put in 12,000 houses. When you see a news article that says St. Johns County approves 12,000 new builds, you're like, Holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's in a lot of places. I mean, I saw it happen in Colorado. I saw the growth there. I go back. I don't even recognize all the places I grew up.
Wow.
And that's just one of the unfortunate things, the laws of exponential growth.
Mm-hmm.
Every doubling is going to be more than the last one exponentially. As the human population continues to grow, what was growth 20 years ago that we thought was rampant, 10 years from now or 20 years from now, it's going to be, exponentially more rampant until something happens to kind of put that growth into check. And, and eventually it's going to have to, because we all know just it can't sustain itself. So it's got to be a tipping point somewhere.
Right.
Yeah,
And
no, I think, Adam, you make
generally it's going to be a water quality issue when it comes to, historically overpopulation and the inability to sustain humans. It's just water and wastewater. Where does all your waste go with that many people?
Sure.
I think you make an incredible point, and this should scare you. Think about this. I mean, don't dismiss it. Think about what he's talking about here, folks. If we continue to multiply like this and do what we're doing, are your kids, Tristan, going to have resources? I mean, when they're 20 years old.
Yeah.
It's freaking scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, I mean, it's hit me several times in my life, but it's hitting home again right now that y'all, we got to get on board and lock hands and make something change. Mm-hmm. We do.
Yep. In one, kind of, I guess a good segue from that, Adam, is one of the things I was reading on BHA Florida's website, which I had heard something about this, but, kind of just left my mind, but a proposed new WMA in Southwest Florida. Can you go into some of that?
Yeah. So the Fish and Wildlife Service is proposing a new conservation area.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the goals, they're looking to obviously protect threatened and endangered species that may be there. But this is all kind of around Fort Myers area, based on the map that I've seen, their study area they're looking at. So they want to protect that greater Everglades and Charlotte Harbor watershed.
Mm-hmm.
So they're looking for habitat congruency. There's a lot of broken up parcels of public land.
Mm-hmm.
So they want to kind of give that wildlife corridor and give that some congruency to that habitat across that area.
Mm-hmm.
So starting April of 2023, they opened up for public comment. Right now, schedule I know, it said late summer would be the development of the draft plan. So that they take public commentary and they take environmental survey.
Mm-hmm.
And they come up with a plan, see if it's feasible, and then they represent that to the public.
Okay.
And then they'll open up another comment period. And after that comment period, they'll have a final draft resolution and a plan. And what BHA Florida is doing is we have drafted a letter. Our chapter president, Richard Martinez, lives and hunts extensively in that area.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in support of the acquisition of land for this new conservation area. However, part of that plan, part of the goal specifically states recreational use. We just want to make sure, and BHA's mission on a national scale is ensuring hunting heritage on public lands. So we want to make sure everybody can have access.
That's great.
Not just the people that have leases, and not just the people that, we want everybody, no matter their means, to have access to a way to hunt and a way to learn. So small game is really huge with us. But going back to the conservation area, so we drafted a letter in support of the recreational use, and part of that recreational use is the traditional hunting, fishing, and trapping. I think trapping gets left out a lot. I don't know if that was in our draft letter or not, but that is something that we do support.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, we encourage the acquisition of that land. We encourage protection of those species, protection of that habitat. But at the same time, we really do encourage recreational use to include hunting, fishing, and trapping on these publicly owned lands.
Right.
So that's the new Southwest Florida Conservation Area. The latest would be late summer. They should have the draft plan coming out here. I know there's a few of us on the update list, so we'll get emails as that progresses.
Nice.
That's something that's really easy to do. It's open public comment.
Mm-hmm.
All you got to do, a lot of times we'll have kind of letters drafted. All you have to do is sign on to. You can draft your own. We really encourage, contacting your local representatives. If there's an issue, I know right now we're working on Department of Education has decided to defund some shooting and archery educational programs.
I know, I hate that.
In schools. So our policy advisors working on a response to that. And clarification of some of the legal wording, I think, is what they're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So it really is. It's a lot about public use and everybody having those resources. Because hey, why wouldn't we teach conservation and archery in schools if we want everybody to have equal opportunity for this public resource?
Right. And I want to get back to the archery thing in here in a second, but to just kind of wrap up the whole thing with the the new WMA, it's like I don't, in my lifetime living in Illinois and Florida and now Georgia, it's honestly the first time I've heard of a new WMA in my 26 years being proposed anywhere in any of these states. So I mean, that doesn't just come along every day. I mean,
it's a long process.
Mm-hmm.
Loxahatchee, I believe, just opened up recently. Merritt Island just opened up in the past. Those are both National Wildlife Refuge. So it's a long process. And, the old saying, two things you don't want to see being made, sausage and politics.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those things. It's a grind, and there's a lot of people that are out there and they're in it for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
And they've spent half of their lives just to get, this one opportunity. And,
wow,
it's a frustrating process, but that's just how it works. We all want this stuff to be solved overnight. You all want access to everywhere we can get it. That's just not the reality of the way the government and the legal system works. So, but yes, like you said, seeing these new opportunities,
mm-hmm.
It's tough because as hunter numbers go down,
mm-hmm.
but as population increases and habitat gets lost, the only real solution I see to that is acquisition of new opportunity.
Right.
There's plenty of public land out there that we don't have access to.
Do you want coffee that doesn't suck? Get the Duck. Dirty Duck coffee is made specifically for the waterfowl enthusiast. Enjoy flavors like Morning Wood, Dark Dynasty, Cinnamon Teal Snickerdoodle, and First Flight to unlock the flavor that you'll enjoy in the blind for years to come. Our friends at Dirty Duck Coffee Company are now offering all Zero Duck 30 followers a 15% discount when you use code ZeroDuck15 on your next order.
Recreational, whatever they may be,
mm-hmm.
opportunities. But it seems there are some user groups that are favored over others in situations. So that's a lot of what BHA does. It's about public land and making sure that hunting heritage, is able to pass on to the next generation.
Yeah, that's great stuff. And kind of, segue from that, I guess, the whole thing with, speaking of the next generation, the whole thing with the archery, and the hunter education being defunded, I saw, I've seen a couple comments out there like, well, they never taught that at my school anyway. And, my response back to that is like, So being from Illinois, I know for a fact we had archery in our school. We didn't have hunter's education in our district, but as a hunter, what kind of rebuttal is that? That's the dumbest thing you could say, because it's like, what? Even if it's 200 kids that somewhere get to get hunter education, what does it matter? It's good for all of us that somewhere has it, you know. So I think it doesn't matter what amount of school districts or what that are getting that defunding. It's a hit regardless to our, you know, to the outdoor community.
Absolutely. I grew up, the high school I went to, I graduated in the 90s, and I definitely took archery.
I love people.
archery,
I love people
right.
that I love people that graduated in the 90s, because I graduated in 1990.
But yeah, no, it's again, it's giving those people that may not otherwise have an opportunity to learn that opportunity, but it's also showing the rest of the people that it's not something to be scared of. It's something that's completely normal.
Right.
And it's a part of society. It's been a part of human existence since recorded history. You know, there have been hunters. And to ignore that, or to try to take that out of our past and our present, it doesn't bode well for our future.
Right. Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's, you know, definitely a challenge that we all have as hunters of, you know, just getting other people into the sport. Because, you know, it's one thing, like we always talk about, you know, how lucky, you know, my dad was to have a person in his life to teach him how to bow hunt, and how lucky I am to have, you know, him to teach me the things.
Well, he wanted to make it that way. I mean, he wanted that ripple effect, you know? Right.
And it's like, you know, not everybody has that. You know, I've got several friends that have gotten into hunting without having their parent hunt. And it's like, you know, it's such a, I mean, just from the perspective of us getting into duck hunting 7-8 years ago, how intimidating that was coming from a deer hunting background, you know? So I totally
shot a gun.
It. Right. Yeah.
Never even shot a gun.
Yeah. We were bow hunters, and I'd never shot a gun. You'd never shot a gun.
So
no. Here you are, 40 years old or whatever, never shot a gun.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure. Know? Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's crazy, but yeah. Man, you know, you guys were hitting the nail on the head on something that I was just kind of observing. And, you know, with this whole thing that we're talking about tonight, with conservation and how important it is, and sharing the sport and educating people and all those things, what about if we don't do nothing? I mean, we talk about all the things that we do, right, and that we're doing, but take that and flip it around for a second and think about if right now we got rid of these folks, we got rid of Ducks Unlimited, we got rid of Delta Waterfowl, NWTF, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Boone and Crockett, Pope and Young. The list goes on and on. I'm sorry if I didn't mention you. Let's just eliminate them off the planet right now.
That's scary.
Dude, it's super scary.
Hunting goes private, and only people that can pay to play. It would be like
royalty.
just like the European model.
Yep.
You know, there would be no public trust resource anymore. It would all be high fence, and that's my animal. And, you know, but then on the other hand, if you let everybody have it, and there were no laws, and there wasn't a model of conservation, you'd have what's called the tragedy of the commons. The resource would be completely depleted, which we've seen. We saw it happen in North America with a lot of the wildlife populations.
Right.
So it's a balance in between, you know, enjoy the resource, consumptive use of the resource, consumptive use of the land and the habitat, but at the same time, realizing that, you know, there's a limit for a reason.
Here's something else that just hit me, guys, and I don't know if I've heard anybody talk about this, so I'm going to act like I'm pretty smart for a minute. All right. Check this out. All right. Whoever you are, listen to this podcast. I don't care who you are. I don't care where you're from, color you are, what country you're from. I don't care who you are. Whether you want to admit it or not, and really, Adam, I'm going to give you the credit here. Isn't one of the biggest hits Ancestry.com or all these, what's the other ones called? I'm talking about knowing your history, right?
23andMe and all that.
23andMe, all that stuff, right? Bro, whether you like it or not, you came from a meat eater.
Yeah.
You did. And I don't mean that to be a jerk or a jackass. What I mean is maybe that's your first step in possibly understanding why we do what we do.
Yep.
If you're interested in your history of your grandma's grandma, you probably don't have to go back very far to find out that there were several people in your family that killed to eat.
Yeah.
Period. You had to kill to eat.
Yeah, I mean, 200 years ago here, 150 years ago, I mean,
yep.
There.
You don't have to go back to way.
Right, like it was just like a couple generations.
That's what you had to do.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to bypass that, that's fine. You can be whoever you want to be. I mean, this is America, right?
Mm-hmm.
I respect you for whoever you are. But
yeah,
the fact of the matter is, maybe that's the first step in somebody else possibly understanding why we do what we do.
Yeah, good point.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of the past couple generations, in the 20th century especially, a lot of wild game and eating wild game was associated with poverty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as the culture shifted to, the 50s and everybody had, the white picket fence, the whole American dream and the frozen meals. And it was, if you still ate wild game, in a lot of places, it was associated with poverty and people didn't want to be.
Sure.
So it kind of fell out of fashion for a little bit. And I've had a lot of experiences where that's the reason people turn their nose up at it.
Mm.
Not that they don't like it. And so that was a different kind of how to understand that and work around that to get these people to taste something that is good.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason they wouldn't do it is because of that generational association with, hey, this is what poor people ate because they had to.
Wow, that's such a great point. And
man,
makes total sense, but something I never even really thought about.
No, me neither. Yeah, I just got smarter again.
There's a lot there's a lot of reasons, people do to the things they do. Who knows
Mm-hmm.
why?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just one of those things that I found out because I took the time to listen, why, and they're like, hey, this is what, and then I just noticed it more and more. And the more people I talked to, and it seemed to be like a generational thing. It was a certain age group when they were coming out of that Depression era, into World War II. It's like, hey, that's kind of, and then all of a sudden culture hit this, refrigerator, freezer, convenience, microwave kind of mentality. And that was what all the cool kids were doing. So if you didn't have that, kind of looked down upon. So I think we lost a lot of talent, a lot of good cooks in that because they were kind of scared to come out there and do it. But
Sure.
a few recipes definitely remained.
Yeah, that's a great segue to getting into some of your wild cooking, man, because the way I understand it is you can whip up some pretty gnarly stuff, huh?
Yeah, for better or worse, most conversations that I get into within 10 minutes, somehow it's going to come back around to food or, oh, you can eat that, or I accidentally ate that once.
Mm-hmm.
It's like habit.
Yeah.
I've been known to cook up a few good things. It got me married, I guess you could say. Although my wife's actually in there cooking right now, but no, when my now wife, then girlfriend, and I met, she came home one day and I had a bunch of squirrels in the refrigerator. And she lost it. Absolutely. What are these things doing in my? I was like, whoa, this is not going to work out. kind of like, maybe I was thinking, because on the other hand, I came home one day from work and there was a sink full of bluegill on ice. And I was like, all right. looking good. And then the whole squirrel thing happened. But fast forward a couple of years, we actually competed in the world champion squirrel cook-off in Arkansas together.
Wow. How cool is that, man?
What?
She left. Yep, she left.
Well, no wonder
left
you
that
married her.
competition. So what are we going to cook next year?
Wow.
And that was kind of when I knew. I was like, all right. I turned her. I mean, I thought she was going to start throwing stuff at me for having squirrels in her refrigerator. Just the reaction was. So yeah, if we can convince her that squirrels are absolutely delicious, and she just went on a sandhill crane hunt in Texas last year. So
that's the best right there, huh?
Completely converted. Oh yeah. She's all about it. So yeah, it's cooking's fun. Wild game's a great ingredient. Anything wild, as a cook, you always want the best ingredients that you can get, and a lot of them are what's growing around you in season, fresh, wild. In Florida is a year-round grocery store.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, because
it's just the amount of stuff, the different kinds of stuff. Once you kind of get in the groove of it, know what you're doing, every month's got something that's just incredible.
Wow. Well, first of all, touching on the fridge thing, it's kind of like an inside joke between me and my wife. Like between I don't know, probably September and the end of February, you might have anything from a squirrel, a goose, a
Crappie,
a deer head that needs Euro mounted, to you name wildlife, it's probably in my fridge in those months. And I've had those conversations as well, Adam, and yeah, it's a fun time, of course. But one thing you said about the squirrels that I thought was hilarious is, I shot one in my backyard and threw it in the crock pot, not really knowing what to do with it. And how redneck, right? Some people would think, but it turned, I just made,
he baited that squirrel.
Yeah. I made tacos out of it, and, it just came together amazingly. But it's just something so simple like that can be delicious.
No, I think it's a funny perspective when it comes to men and women on this whole topic of the introduction of these things. It's kind of like, when they walk into your apartment when you're single, they're like, all right, this shit's got to go, that's got to go. And you're like, but the stuff that doesn't go are your bows, your guns, and all these things. And we suddenly introduce them to the fact that we are rednecks, and, the very first house we built, I hung a deer in the front yard, and all the neighbors called my wife when she was at work, and she's like, Tony's got a deer hanging from the tree in your brand new house front yard. I thought it was showing off
only tree, right?
Well, I thought it showed off my house better.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's how dumb I was. Honestly, I didn't really even think twice about it. I really did not, because that's what we did all the time. And on top of that, I was even around the area where we used to throw that shit on the hood, on top of your car. I put one on my freaking, what was that purple little car? What was it? It was a Ford Escort. I put that shit on top of my Ford Escort, a little 6-point buck, and drove that shit around honking the horn. Yeah. How things
it was
have
a different
changed.
time. I mean, that was kind of when it was.
That's what we did in the 80s.
Game was just coming back around back then. Like, it was a big deal.
Yeah. Well, it
was so scarce that it was a big deal when somebody killed a deer.
Imagine this, y'all. And Dan Perez just posted the other day. He goes, "Who remembers Pike County back in the day?" All right. Let's even go just about from back in the day. Pike County, Brown, Adams County is called the Golden Triangle. Everybody knows about it. That turned into a super center. Our partners at Huntwise are offering an exclusive discount for Zero Duck 30 followers. As an elite member, some of the features you'll immediately gain access to are Huntcast, Windcast, peak kill times, property lines, owner information and phone lookup, 250 map layers, unlimited offline maps, 3D maps, social media, and on top of it all, save up to 50% on some of the top hunting brands in the industry. Download and explore the #1 hunting tool set today and save 20% by using code DUCK30. Producing giant deer. Okay, just just the genetics and the soil and everything, right? I remember my stepdad telling me back in the 60s when you couldn't even deer hunt. He would go weeks sometimes scouting during season without even seeing a deer track. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? I mean, kudos to everybody that's made that shit happen.
Yeah.
I mean, but imagine that back in the 60s in Illinois, you don't see a deer track. That's some crazy shit.
That's nuts.
You know? So anyway, good stuff.
Yeah, it's great to see. I mean, it's great that we have the abundance of the resource that we do. You know, it's just we need to learn how to share a little better sometimes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Especially on public land.
Yeah, you know, it's tough. You know, and I'm lucky that I've had a lot of great experiences, and I have other stuff to occupy me. I'm not chomping at the bit to hunt anymore like I used to. And I went almost all last hunting season without a vehicle. My truck broke down during early teal, and then there was a huge hurricane. So all my hunting spots were flooded.
Oh man.
And it was definitely a lesson in patience and wanting to hunt, not being able. I mean, I hunted less last year, I think, that I have in probably 20 years.
Wow.
Not by choice.
Right.
But it definitely taught me that there's other things out there that can fill that gap.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hopefully, you know, got me lined up to be content hunting less, but still being active, still participate. You know, I realize I'm not going to be able to be in the woods forever, and that someone else has that spot hopefully coming up for them, and hopefully they're educated in a way that spot's going to be there for the generation after.
Yeah, that's a great way to kind of sum up. And, you know, I think that's just kind of like the natural, going back to as simple as your hunter education class. You know, it's like, that's kind of what they talk about, you know, the phases of a hunter. And we've said it before on here, you know, it's at first you just want to kill everything you can. And then, you know, somewhere along the line, you're looking for a trophy. And then somewhere after that, it's, you know, you're caring about the next generation and you're not so concerned about what you shoot, you know, and it's you know, it's true. And I think everybody kind of, if they love it for the right reasons, goes through those things.
Yeah,
yep, absolutely.
Well, and man, I'm just full of ideas tonight. All right, so but check this out. How many times have you all? Well, I know this for a fact. Everybody listening to this podcast right now, every single one of you, have been on public land somewhere, whether it's a city park, lake, whether it's a WMA, a state park, federal, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. There's people out there listening to us that's guilty of not leaving it the way you found it. Mm-hmm. There is, because I see your shit. Mm-hmm. All right. And so I'm just going to be really bold by saying this. And Tristan, please make this real. And I'm dead serious when I say this. Pick up your trash.
Yeah.
All right. Also, your
mama don't live here.
Right. Your other responsibility is when you are on public, private, I don't give a shit where you are. If you see trash, pick it up, bro. If somebody give you hunting rights, right? You're having this dream type of opportunity. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple bottled waters in the ditch right there on the property line. And you just go, somebody else will pick it up. Mm-hmm. Then the farmer drives by and says, them some bitches.
Yeah.
Put that on my property. Dude, you don't want that.
Right.
You don't want that. So if anything, just be smart and pick it up for that reason. You know, close your gates. Close your gates. Don't drive on corn. Don't drive on planted crops. You know, don't
public perception.
Right.
Want to leave a good one.
Right. Don't sit on property lines. All these different things, y'all. Get your head out of your asses and start protecting these little environments that we hunt in. Mm-hmm. Tristan and I have seen it so many times. We're walking through the woods and there's a bottle of trash, I I'll be like, now I make the younger guys do it, but I'll be like, pick that shit up.
I think one kind of important thing about, we were talking earlier about how some people say the perception, social media and videos and all this has ruined hunting, but like, there can be conversations like this where it's like, hopefully people listening to this hear that. And if you weren't taught to hunt by somebody that, like they talk about the unwritten rules, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if somebody didn't tell you the unwritten rules, how are you going to know them?
Right.
So it's as simple as just sharing those things, and it's just educating people. And,
that's all. I mean, that's one of our main goals of what we're out to do is show the reality of hunting and these things that, that you weren't fortunate enough to learn from somebody. You don't know what you know. We talked about earlier. You don't know what you don't know.
Yep.
You don't. So, but really take some pride in that, y'all, whether you're on public or private ground. If you're on that city lake and you see those styrofoam worm, things floating around, or a lid or a soda cup or whatever it is, dude, just pick it up, because now guess what you did? You might have made it more beautiful for somebody else.
Yep.
And I will give a big shout out to the state of Georgia. I'm telling you guys what, the Georgia WMAs are maintained by not only the state, but we've been to them where you can go there and you'll see at the check-in stations and stuff where they have like monthly conservationists and people that get together, not even hunters, that go around and pick up trash and stuff like that, dude. I mean, go try to make an impact like that, because I think it's so important to tie that into.
That's the absolute easiest way.
Yeah.
Is to leave it better than you found it.
Yep.
Because there's, like you said, there's always. I'm very rarely gone somewhere where I haven't seen a piece of trash.
Yeah. Yep. But we can all make a difference in that. And I just thought it was important to bring up that point with the fact that we're talking about conservation.
For sure.
Absolutely, man.
And, Adam, I guess, one of the kind of, last things here, kind of going back to the wild game stuff, can you kind of give us, I guess, a couple questions I have, personally is, with duck, for example, I've been all over the map with cooking duck. I've cooked a ring neck and a pintail one time, and it was the same recipe, and they both tasted delicious. And then I've cooked, a ring neck that I shot somewhere else that didn't taste good. And just, can you give us kind of, I guess, from a duck perspective, your perspective on cooking ducks?
Hold on, before he does that, Tristan was like Forrest, or like Bubba. He's like, you can make duck salad, duck stew, duck potatoes, duck and
that's
what Adam's gonna say.
But go ahead, Adam. Sorry,
that's what's going on in my head for sure. It was definitely one of my favorite proteins back in the restaurant industry. One of my early jobs was cutting up ducks, whole ducks.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. I mean, they were fattier, they were consistent. So the biggest issue I think with ducks is that consistency thing. Mm-hmm. Two kinds of ducks, dabblers and divers. Dabblers are going to be the ones that eat the plant material, kind of stay on the surface. Divers are going to be your ones that are going to be more prone to eating aquatic invertebrates, fish. So the old saying, you are what you eat.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely holds true for this one and can carry over. That being said, there are some ways to kind of hedge your bets on that one. Knowing what kind of duck you're shooting and what they're eating is a big one. With ducks, yellow fat is generally not great unless they've been on a bunch of corn. White fat is typically going to be cleaner flavor.
Okay.
So if you have a diver with yellow fat, that's not going to be great.
Okay. That's good
but there are some instances that yellow color comes from carotene a lot of times. So if they've been on a cornfield and you get a nice big fat yellow breast, just cut off a little piece of the fat, render it, taste it. So definitely what they've been eating is going to factor into that. Overcooking duck is one of the, like you mentioned earlier, overcooking, one of the biggest mistakes, one of the easiest things to do, because wild game isn't forgiving and a lot of times it doesn't have that intramuscular fat in there to kind of protect it from overcooking. So time and temperature are a really big deal. So starting out with, again, like knowing what kind of duck you have, diver dabbler, and then going from there, like what did you see it eating on? What granted, you can't guarantee what it was eating 2 days ago, which is why that consistency thing comes in with a duck, where you could say you shot a ringer over here that tasted completely different from the one you shot there. And they're known to be pretty good. Like, they have a bad reputation, but the ringers are pretty consistently pretty good ducks.
You know,
in my experience.
Dude, don't even get us down this road.
Well, and I think it's just interesting, like, and I'm sure you've heard this. If we've heard it, you've heard it 1,000 times, Adam. You know, just the across the board, the amount of misconceptions. You know, for example, people in Arkansas, they don't like eating snow geese. Well, I cook snow geese here personally, and I thought it was good. And then our buddy from Arkansas, you'll think this is funny. You know, I've heard some decent things about shark. Like, you know, I don't think it's like eating grouper or something, but like it's not what people are targeting in Florida to go eat. And our buddy from Arkansas is like, man, I ate a shark one time. It was the best thing I ever ate. And I wanted to laugh because he's a waterfowl guide in Arkansas, and I wanted to be like, but you don't like snow goose.
Yeah, you know, well, and a lot of it comes down to who was cooking it and how it's prepared, and even sometimes that's based on reputation. They just heard it somewhere. And they're just repeating that, you know, just to say that they've never, oh, well, I heard it tastes like, and they'll just say instead of I heard, they'll leave the I heard part out and be like, that stuff tastes like crap.
Dude, I gotta mention this, and this is like my little commercial of a believer on preparation is a big thing, which, you know, Adam, all about that, but one of the best sandwiches Tristan and I have ever had was the shittiest smelling duck I've ever smelt in my life. I'm not kidding you. It was a buffalo head, and Drew was like, well, I'll take some bitches home and eat them. I said, eat away, buddy. I said, I'm not eating that. I mean, dude, I will tear up some frog legs. I will.
Did you hunt that with our friend Steve?
No. We was doing this on some public land.
All right.
And but here's the thing. I go over to my buddy's house, and his wife cooks these buffalo head sandwiches with cantaloupe and some other shit on there.
Gruyere cheese or something?
Yeah. It's a toasted cheese thing. I am not lying when I say this. It was the best duck sandwich I've ever had in my entire life.
He did, which I'd be interested to hear your take on this too, Adam, but he always ages his ducks for hang ages them for 3 weeks.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's we could have a whole other podcast on aging meat and hanging meat.
Yeah.
But all I can say is just do it. For a duck, do it breast up. And when you shoot your duck, put it breast up in the shade. That starts the process right there.
Huh.
If you can get a lot of your off flavors are going to be in that blood.
Wow, like hanging a deer, dude.
Blood's going to coagulate. What's left in the meat, like the pink stuff in the water, is myoglobin. So that's what gives blood its color. So you're not actually getting blood out, but you are getting some of that, like, real irony, livery, some of those off flavors that can come. But yeah, just throw it breast up in the shade, and then when you get home, put it in the fridge. I like to do mine for like 10 days to 2 weeks. My birds,
in the fridge. Are you hanging them in the fridge?
No problem leaving a duck ungutted for that long. Zero problem whatsoever. No hesitate unless I know it was gut shot. In which case, I'll gut it. But even then, if you're just gonna breast them out, then you have no issues with that. These are pretty common practice back in the market hunting days.
Are you cutting out blood spots?
Typically not.
Okay. I just wanted to hear your opinion on that. I mean, obviously, you know,
I'm
everybody's
checking them for shot.
Right.
I'm checking them for shot, but I'm not cutting them out.
You try to wash it as best as you can. I'm just trying to put it in the
Yeah.
so somebody new doing this, you know. I've heard it both
I thought
ways.
about getting one of those little handheld wands to check for shot, but based on some reviews, I just don't think they would adequately cover it. I don't know. I'm a little hesitant for the price. They make like a handheld metal detector wand that you can wave over your birds.
Huh.
I want a
Make sure the
badass
shot's
magnet
out.
that just makes it like all of a sudden stick to my magnet.
there you go.
I'm like, there you are, bitch.
I don't mind eating it. I don't have any teeth left, really. I just don't want to go through my meat grinder.
Right. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah, no, I was
My
just
teeth are already shot, so
the other thing I was going to bring up again about the meat tasting thing, and Tristan, I'm going to say 2 points real quick. One, we shot the most beautiful fat ass ringnecks in Arkansas last year. Katie shot one. Two, actually, we got video coming out with that, right? Dude, these were the biggest, fattest ringnecks, at least a half a pound bigger. Dude, big fat dogs. And I was like, you better mount that sumbitch. I mean, and dude, as waterfowlers, we experience all kinds of extreme weather conditions. Stay bone dry and warm with Frog Togs hunting gear. You can check them out at frogtogs.com or at Frog Togs Hunt on Instagram. Rice and cornfields.
Yeah.
And so, again, what you're talking about ringnecks, you know, you are what you eat. But here's the other thing I want to bring up, and I'm going to do a special about this. We haven't figured out how we're going to do it quite yet, but here's the thing. You know this, Adam. If you take a cow, right, and go around and freak it all out, point the gun at it, and say, I'm going to shoot your ass, get its adrenaline all up and shoot it, and the meat's going to taste like shit.
yeah. It's going to definitely go through a phase of enzymatic activity, adrenaline, that kind of stuff that's going to be coursing through the body. That's going to toughen the meat. There's going to be some flavors there. Yeah, you don't want that.
Yeah, so that's a fact, all right? That's a
Yep,
fact
that is a
we
fact.
know, okay?
Yep.
So that's why they
And it's not
slaughter.
just cows.
No, and that's why they efficiently kill these animals, right? So I've always said this, deer hunting, all right? Yes, you are what you eat. Yes, younger animal tastes better, all these things. But here's the deal. You shoot a deer and you wound it. I guarantee your ass that deer is going to taste worse than a deer you shot super quick and died. It's just, it will.
I can generally smell a deer that's been run by dogs.
Wow.
Holy cow.
When people bring it in the cooler, it's got a certain smell to it
Wow.
that tells me it was wounded and it was run by dogs.
Wow.
I've just gotten to where it's like a little slightly skunky aroma, and it's just very faint, but I can smell it now that my nose is tuned into it. And I'll ask, and like 90% of the time, they're like, "Oh yeah, I wounded it. We had to get a dog to run it down."
Wow. That is mind blowing.
Wow.
It's definitely there.
So here's my take. We can easily identify that with these big game animals, right? Because it's such a big animal, right? We have all this meat that comes from it and everything. But other animals we kill are still different ages. They eat different things. You wound some, if you knock some, as we say, shoot their face off. We do that kind of thing. I'm going to keep that in mind. Probably the best duck ever is the one that you shoot the face off. But anyway, here's the thing. If you cripple a duck, and I'm going to do a whole thing on this, I'm going to bet my life, bro, that duck is not going to taste as good. Let's just take a middle-aged duck or even a young duck. You wound it and cripple it. The adrenaline goes through it and everything else. That's going to be your shitty tasting duck.
Yeah, so don't quote me on this, but I think what the chemical reaction is it's breaking down into lactic acid. So it's a lactic acid buildup. So like when you run, right? When you're a runner and you get cramps, it's the same kind of thing. They tell you to eat a bunch of potassium, like eat a banana. It's that same kind of chemical reaction. When they overexert, they're using up their adenosine phosphate, maybe ATP reserves. So they're using up all that energy. And once they start using that, their muscles are actually breaking down. And then you get a buildup of lactic acid, which lactic acid is going to start breaking down the muscle fibers and proteins. So there's all kinds of unquotable science.
You know, it's going to be funny, dude. I'm just thinking something like in the future, you know, and I'm going to really dive into this whole piece, y'all, about this. But you're in the duck blind with a bunch of buddies, right? And a duck flies by and you shoot it, and it flies out there crippled and has to be shot again. You're like, who shot that duck? I'm like, wasn't me. Where everybody else would be, you'd be like, dude, I shot that duck.
Yeah, after you hear the food science.
After you hear the food science on it, you're like, no, I didn't shoot that duck, dude. That was you. That's part of your limit.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
No, it's interesting, but logically, just it has to be, right? I mean, yeah.
As do. So just if you're listening to this, take that in consideration and give us your feedback on that. And yeah, and I mean, obviously, with this super guy that's on the phone or on the phone with us right now, you know, you could probably message him and just say, "All right, I've got a wounded duck, and tell me how to make it taste good."
Kill it quickie.
Well, Adam, you know, we've really appreciated having you on tonight, man, and you've been a wealth of knowledge, and you know, hopefully, honestly, one day in the future, you know, I'd like to dive into more of just the game processing and cooking, you know, down the line. I just think that'd be really interesting. But can you kind of tell people, you know, whether it be through BHA or whatever it might be, because I know you do the recruitment and stuff, how people can get in touch with you if they're interested in, you know, working with you on that kind of stuff, and yeah, following along with what you do.
There is you can go to the BHA national website and click on the state of Florida, and that'll get you to the Florida chapter.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook. If you guys have any questions, look me up. I'm on Instagram. I just got that. So I don't use it that often, but everybody's like, you got to do it. You got to do it. So I finally changed in.
I feel you, bro. I feel you.
And that's at Cure Number One. So that's all like mainly the meat curing stuff. That's the meat side of stuff. But yeah, usually have time sometimes in the evenings to answer questions. Always like talking about meat and food and wild game and outdoors and running around doing fun stuff in the woods.
Hey, if you don't mind, I mean, I don't want to give up any like personal information, but what city are you in Florida?
I'm in Sanford, Florida.
All right.
Nice. Okay.
All right. Listen, if we're coming through there, we're eating.
Yeah,
I just want to make that point true. I'd be like, bro, you better have something, because hey, we've been through Sanford. You know where Sanford is? It's right off.
My wife's mom lives in Winter Garden.
All right. Yep. Right across. So we're right off of Lake Jessup, right there.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
So
heck yeah, man. Man, thank you so much. I mean,
of course, gentlemen.
Big shout out, big respect for you taking the time out with us tonight. Super enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks for your time, and enjoyed it as well. And look forward to, like you said, if you're in the area, look me up. We'll try to get you out and do some hunting. At the very least, get you a good meal.
Well, and remember, we're up in the Atlanta area, so if you ever need a place to stay on the way, it seems like we're always in between where everybody's going. You know, if you ever need to do that, just hit us up.
Awesome. I appreciate it, guys.
Yes, sir.
Well, thanks, Adam.
I've been southbound, I've been hellbound, riding on the midnight train. Going too fast now, think I ought to slow down, standing in the pouring rain.